$8,000. The words hung in the air of that expensive restaurant like a guillotine blade, and I watched my son's face drain of every drop of color as my grandson asked the question that would shatter our family forever. The $8,000 a month I've been sending for your care, Grandma. Dad's been helping you with it, right? I sat there, frozen. A 68-year-old woman who'd been rationing heart medication like precious stones, who'd been choosing between rent and food, who'd been thanking her son every single month for his generous $1,000 help. $1,000 out of $8,000. My mind couldn't process the mathematics of betrayal. Danny looked like he'd seen a ghost, his expensive suit suddenly seeming like evidence at a crime scene, and that's when I understood with crushing clarity that my own son had been stealing from me for years, while I counted pills and skipped meals. But what I discovered about his secret life, about the lies he'd told my grandson to keep us apart, about the luxury he'd been living while I worked at 68 years old just to survive, that changed everything. This is the story of how one Thanksgiving dinner exposed a betrayal so shocking it destroyed our family, but also saved my life. My name is Grace Bennett, and on that cold Tuesday morning in November, I shook my pill bottle and heard only 3 tablets rattling inside. 3 tablets meant 3 more days before I'd have to make the choice again, the one that had become sickeningly familiar over the past 2 years. Heart medication or groceries, survival or living. I sat at my kitchen table in my tiny apartment on Maple Street in Columbus, Ohio, staring at that orange prescription bottle like it held my future. Next to it lay the rent notice, stamped in angry red letters. Final notice. $200 late fee added. The irony burned. I'd worked 35 years as a school secretary, saved every penny with my late husband, Frank, and here I was at nearly 70, still punching a time clock at Peterson's grocery down the block, still calculating whether I could afford to stay alive another month. My pension barely covered rent. My part-time wages paid utilities and food if I was careful. The medications, well, those were the luxury I rationed like a miser counting gold. I tucked the bottle into my purse and headed out for my Tuesday afternoon shift, the November air biting through my worn coat as I walked those 4 blocks. My chest felt tight, but I'd learned to ignore warning signs my body sent. Every hour of work mattered too much. "Morning, Grace," Pete Peterson called out as I hung up my coat. Pete was a good man who'd given me this job when nobody else would hire someone my age, and he didn't need to know I'd skipped breakfast to save money, or that each can of soup I restocked, it felt heavier than it should. Around 2 o'clock, Danny walked through the front door, and I felt that familiar mix of gratitude and unease I'd started feeling lately. My son, always dressed sharp, today, in a crisp navy suit and leather shoes that probably cost more than I made in a month. At 42, he still had that charming smile, though his hairline was creeping back and stress lines marked his face from 3 years of divorce recovery. "Hey there, Mom," he said, wrapping me in a quick hug that smelled like expensive cologne. "Looking good today." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, the familiar weight of cash inside. Danny had been doing this for 2 years now, giving me $1,000 every month, and it meant I could eat something besides canned soup. "You're too good to me," I said, my voice catching. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "Mom, you raised me right. This is the least I can do," he replied, glancing around the store with something that looked like pity. "You sure you need to keep working here? I mean, with what I give you each month. I like keeping busy." I lied quickly. The truth was, even with his help, I needed every dollar from this job, but I didn't want him knowing how bad things really were. Danny was doing enough already. He checked his watch, a sleek silver thing I'd never seen before. "I've got to run. Meeting. With some clients." After he left, I opened the envelope in the bathroom. 10 crisp $100 bills. Just like always. I folded them carefully, already calculating how to stretch this money until next month, already grateful for my son's generosity. 3 days later, on Friday afternoon, my world collapsed. I was restocking breakfast cereal when the tightness in my chest became something terrifying. The boxes suddenly weighed 100 pounds each, and the fluorescent lights started swimming like fish in a bowl. I'd been without my heart pills for 2 days. The new prescription sat at Walgreens with a price tag of $240. Money I simply didn't have, even with Danny's 1,000. My hands started tingling. The aisle stretched out like a tunnel, getting darker with each heartbeat. I tried calling out to Pete, but my voice came out as barely a whisper. The boxes scattered as I went down, hitting the linoleum hard enough to rattle my teeth. The last thing I remember was ceiling tiles spinning above me, and Pete's distant voice shouting for someone to call 911. I woke up in Riverside Methodist Hospital with an IV in my arm, and Dr. Martinez explaining I'd had a cardiac episode. Not quite a heart attack, but my heart had been under serious stress from irregular rhythm. "Mrs. Bennett, when did you last take your prescribed medication?" he asked, and I felt heat creep up my neck as I admitted I'd been spacing them out to make them last longer. His pen stopped moving. "This medication needs to be taken daily. Missing doses can be extremely dangerous. How do you explain to someone half your age that you can't afford to stay alive?" Danny arrived, looking flustered. His tie loosened, and for a moment, he looked like the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. "Mom, Jesus, what happened?" The doctor explained about the medication rationing, and Danny's face went through several emotions before settling on frustration. "Mom, why didn't you tell me you were having trouble? The pharmacy cost is about $240 monthly," Dr. Martinez added. "Insurance covers some, but there's significant out-of-pocket expense." Danny shifted in his chair, his jaw working like he was chewing something bitter. "Doctor, I help my mother financially every month. She should be able to afford her medications." After the doctor left, Danny sat beside my bed, staring at his hands. "Mom, I wish I could help more with medical bills, but things are tight for me too right now. I'm already giving you what I can." But even as I thanked him, something nagged at me. When he'd rushed in, I'd caught a glimpse of him getting out of a car in the parking lot. It was sleek and silver. Definitely not the beat-up Honda he'd been driving. "What kind of car are you driving these days?" I asked casually. He looked up sharply. "What?" "Oh, that. It's just a lease for work. You know, clients expect a certain image. It looked expensive from here." "Yeah. Well, it's all about appearances in my business." He stood abruptly. "I should let you rest." As I lay there after he left, my mind drifted to Alex, and my chest ached with a different kind of pain. My grandson had always been the light of my life. When Danny's marriage fell apart 17 years ago, and he moved back home for 6 months, 8-year-old Alex would spend weekends with Frank and me. While Danny wallowed in his divorce, Alex would help me tend my little herb garden on the balcony, his small hands carefully watering the basil and oregano. "Grandma Grace, why do grown-ups make everything so complicated?" he'd ask. Dirt smudged on his cheek. "Because we forget how to see things simply, sweetheart." I'd tell him Alex never forgot. Even as a teenager, he'd come over after school to help with grocery shopping, or show me something new about computers. He was brilliant with technology, always patient teaching me. "You're going to change the world someday," I'd tell him. "I want to change your world first, Grandma. Make things easier for you and Grandpa." When Frank died 4 years ago, Alex was 21 and finishing college. He drove 6 hours from university to be at the funeral, and afterwards, he was the only one who noticed I wasn't eating. He brought soup every day for 2 weeks, sitting at my kitchen table, making sure I took each spoonful. A year later, Alex graduated with his computer science degree and announced he was moving to Dubai. "Some technology company wants me to help develop a new software platform. It's a huge opportunity, Grandma. If this works out, I'll be able to take care of you, the way you and Grandpa took care of me." That was 3 years ago. The Sunday calls he'd promised stopped after just a few months. Whenever I asked Danny about calling Alex, he'd have excuses. The time difference makes it tough, Mom. Or he's working 18-hour days just to survive over there. Or his phone plan doesn't allow international calls right now. When I'd ask for Alex's number or address, Danny would deflect. I handle all communication with him, Mom. He specifically asked me to be the go-between so he doesn't get distracted from work. I'd stopped asking after a while, not wanting to be a burden. But the silence from my grandson hurt more than I let on. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I was sitting at my kitchen table counting pills when someone knocked at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, my heart nearly stopped. Alex, I whispered. There stood my grandson, but not the boy I remembered. This was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive coat that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. His face had filled out, and he wore his dark hair shorter, but those eyes were exactly the same. Frank's eyes, kind and intelligent. Grandma Grace, he said, his voice deeper and more confident than I remembered. I dropped the pill bottle right there in my doorway and reached for him. He caught me in a hug that lifted me off my feet, and I started crying before I could stop myself. I can't believe you're here, I sobbed into his shoulder. I can't believe you're really here. I've missed you so much, he said. And I could hear tears in his voice too. When I finally pulled back to look at his face, I saw him taking in my appearance, my worn housecoat, my tired face, the way my hands shook slightly. Danny doesn't know you're here, does he? I asked. Not yet. I wanted to surprise both of you. He bent down to pick up my spilled pills, his expression growing concerned as he read the label. Grandma, are you feeling all right? You look. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just getting older. Quickly took the pills from him. Come in, come in. You must be exhausted from traveling. As Alex stepped into my small apartment, I watched him take everything in. The old furniture, the tiny kitchen, the stack of bills on my counter. I'd forgotten to hide. His jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't say anything. We moved to the living room, and Alex settled onto my old couch. For a moment, he looked like that 8-year-old boy again, the one who used to curl up next to me while I read him stories. Do you remember when you used to spend weekends here after your parents' divorce? I said. You were so small and so serious about everything. Alex smiled. I remember you teaching me to make chocolate chip cookies. You let me crack the eggs, even though I got shell pieces in the bowl every time. And you always wanted to eat the cookie dough before we baked them. You'd pretend to scold me, but then you'd sneak me spoonfuls when Grandpa wasn't looking. His expression grew tender. You always made everything better, Grandma. When my parents were fighting, when I was confused, you'd just let me help you in the kitchen, and everything felt normal again. We talked for an hour, reconnecting, and then Alex leaned forward. Grandma, tell me honestly, are you happy working at the grocery store? I chose my words carefully. It keeps me busy. Pete is a good boss. But are you happy? Really happy? How could I tell him I counted pills like precious stones? That I sometimes chose between eating and medication? That I missed him so much some days? I'd call his old number just to hear his voicemail. I'm happy you're here, I said finally. That's all that matters right now. Alex studied my face for a long moment. Have you eaten today? You look thinner than I remember. Before I could answer, he was moving toward my kitchen. When he opened my refrigerator, I saw his face change as he took in the sparse contents. A carton of milk nearly empty, some leftover soup, a few slices of bread. His jaw tightened. Grandma, where are your groceries? I shop day by day. Buy what I need when I need it. When's the last time you had a proper meal? I couldn't remember, and my silence was answer enough. Alex closed the refrigerator and turned to face me. This isn't right. You shouldn't be living like this. I'm fine, Alex. I've been taking care of myself for 70 years. But you shouldn't have to just survive, Grandma. You should be comfortable. Before I could respond, he was reaching for his phone. I'm calling Dad. We're going out to dinner tonight, all 3 of us. Somewhere nice. We need to celebrate. An hour later, I found myself in the back seat of a car nicer than any I'd ever been in. Alex called it an Uber. The restaurant he chose was unlike anywhere I'd ever been. Soft lighting, cloth napkins, servers in black uniforms. The menu didn't have prices, which made my stomach tighten with worry. Danny arrived 20 minutes late, slightly out of breath, wearing a suit I'd never seen before. His face was flushed, and he kept checking his phone. "Son, I can't believe you're here." Danny wrapped Alex in a hug that seemed too enthusiastic. "You look great. Dubai's been good to you." "It has," Alex said simply, studying his father's face. "You look good too, Dad." "That's a nice suit." "This old thing?" Danny tugged at his jacket. "Just something for client meetings." We settled into our table, and Alex started talking about his business, how well it was doing. Danny nodded along, but I noticed he seemed nervous, fidgeting with his napkin. Then Alex said casually, "You know, Dad, I've been meaning to ask you something. How's Grandma been doing with the money I've been sending?" I looked up from my menu, confused. "Money?" Alex turned to me with a smile. "The $8,000 a month I've been sending for your care, Grandma. Dad's been helping you with it, right?" The color drained from Danny's face, like someone had pulled a plug. I stared at Alex, then at Danny, my mind struggling to process what I'd just heard. 8,000, I whispered. Alex's smile faded as he looked between us. "Dad, you have been giving Grandma the money, haven't you?" The silence stretched across our table like a chasm. Danny's face had gone from flushed to pale in seconds, and I could see sweat forming on his forehead, despite the restaurant's cool air. Of course I've been helping Mom," Danny stammered. "You know I have." "Alex, I give her money every month." "How much?" Alex's voice was deadly quiet. Danny's eyes darted between us. "Can we discuss this later? Privately?" "How much, Dad?" 1,000, I said, my voice cracking. "Danny gives me $1,000 a month." Alex's face went very still. 1,000. Out of 8,000. "Alex, you don't understand," Danny said quickly. "There are expenses, transfer fees, currency exchanges. $7,000 in fees." Alex's voice carried a dangerous edge. "What kind of transfer fees cost 7,000? Dad, it's complicated. International banking? You wouldn't. I've been sending money internationally for 3 years. I know exactly what the fees are. They're about $15. The restaurant had started to notice our table now. Conversations dropping to whispers. "Where is the money, Dad?" "Alex, please. We can talk about this at home." "Where is the money?" The question exploded across the restaurant loud enough that several tables went completely silent. Our waiter retreated to the kitchen, and I saw a manager start walking toward us. I sat frozen, my mind racing. $7,000. Danny had been stealing $7,000 every month while I rationed heart medication. "You've been living off my money," Alex continued, his voice now low and controlled. "The BMW, the expensive clothes, all of it paid for with money I sent to keep my grandmother alive." "Son, it's not like that, isn't it?" Alex pulled out his phone and started scrolling. "Let me see. I've been sending you 8,000 for Grandma and another 8,000 for your own expenses. 16,000 a month, Dad. And you still stole from her. Another 8,000? My head started spinning. Alex had been sending Danny his own money too. "I give you almost 200,000 a year," Alex said, each word carefully enunciated. "And you let your mother live in poverty while you drive around in a BMW. Danny's face crumpled. "Alex, you don't understand how hard it's been. Starting over, trying to rebuild my life. Your divorce was 17 years ago. I know. But finding steady work at my age. You don't have a job, do you, Dad?" The question hung in the air like a blade. The insurance sales, the client meetings, all of it. Lies. Alex leaned back in his chair. "You've been living entirely off the money I send you, and you still couldn't leave Grandma's portion alone." I found my voice. "You don't have a job?" Danny turned to me with tears in his eyes. "Mom, I can explain. You've been pretending to go to work for 2 years, I said, my voice growing stronger. You told me you were helping me out of the goodness of your heart. You let me thank you over and over for your generosity. I was helping you. I gave you 1,000 every month. My money. Alex slammed his hand on the table. You gave her 1/8 of her own money and took credit for it. The manager had reached our table. Gentlemen, ladies, I'm going to have to ask you to keep your voices down. Alex looked up at her and made a visible effort to control himself. I'm sorry. We'll be leaving soon. He stood up, pulling out his wallet and placing several $100s on the table. For the inconvenience. He turned to me, his expression softening completely. Grandma, will you come with me? I think we need to have a conversation away from here. I nodded. As I started to stand, Danny reached for my arm. Mom, please let me explain. I looked down, at his hand, then, at his face. This was my son, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd been stealing from his own mother while she couldn't afford medicine. Don't touch me, I said quietly, pulling my arm free. I don't want to hear your explanations, Danny. I don't want to hear anything from you right now. Alex was beside me instantly, offering his arm for support. As we walked toward the door, I heard Danny call after us. Mom, Alex, please, we're family. Alex paused and turned back. Family doesn't steal from each other, Dad. Family doesn't let their mother choose between medication and food while they drive luxury cars. I can fix this. I can pay it back. With what money? You don't have a job, remember? And then we were outside in the cold November air, and I was breathing deeply for the first time in hours. We sat in Alex's hotel room at the Hilton downtown. Room service coffee growing cold between us, as my grandson explained 3 years of lies and manipulation. Sending Dad money since my 2nd year in Dubai, Alex said. $8,000 a month for his living expenses, because he told me he was struggling to find work after being laid off. I didn't question it. He's my father, and I wanted to help. And the money for me? That started 2 years ago. Dad called. Said you were having health problems, that your medications were expensive, and you were too proud to ask for help directly. He said you'd made him promise not to tell me how bad things were because you didn't want to worry me. I closed my eyes. Even Danny's request for help had been designed to make himself look caring. I was so grateful he was looking out for you, Alex continued. I told him to spare no expense. Whatever you needed. Better doctors, a nicer apartment, a house if you wanted. I said money was no object when it came to your care. All this time I thought Danny was sacrificing to help me, and all this time I thought you were living comfortably because of what I was sending. Alex's jaw tightened. Do you know what really kills me? Every month, when I sent the money, Dad would update me on how you were doing. He'd say, you were grateful, but didn't want to talk on the phone, because you felt guilty about needing help. He made me believe that not calling you was an act of kindness. We sat in silence, both processing the magnitude of Danny's betrayal. What happens now? I asked quietly. Alex was quiet for a long moment. I'm moving back to the States. I've been planning it for months anyway. My company is expanding into North America, and I need to be here to oversee it. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Actually, Grandma, I was hoping home could be closer to you. I'm buying a house here in Columbus, a big house with plenty of room. I want you to come live with me. My breath caught. Alex, I couldn't. Why not? I'm an old woman. You're young and successful. You should be thinking about finding someone special, starting your own family. You are my family, Alex said firmly. The most important family I have. And I'm not asking you to be my housekeeper or anything like that. I'm asking you to let me take care of you the way you took care of me when I needed it most. Tears started flowing down my cheeks. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Besides, I'm going to need someone to teach me how to make those chocolate chip cookies again. I tried a few times in Dubai, but they never tasted right. You never did learn to crack an egg properly. See? I need you, Grandma. I wiped my eyes. What about Danny? Alex's expression hardened. What about him? He's still your father, still my son. He's cut off completely. No more money, no more contact. Grandma, he stole from you. He let you go without medication, live in that tiny apartment, work at your age when you should be relaxing, and he did it all while living in luxury, off money meant for your care. Alex's voice was steel. I can forgive a lot of things, but I will never forgive someone who hurts you. 3 weeks later, I stood in the marble-floored foyer of Alex's new house, looking up at a chandelier that probably cost more than I'd made in 5 years. The house was beautiful. 6 bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and a library where Alex had installed a comfortable reading chair just for me. Your room is upstairs, Alex said, carrying my belongings. But I had them put in a small refrigerator and coffee maker, so you don't have to come downstairs if you don't want to. Complete independence. But I'm right down the hall if you need anything. This is too much, Alex. It's not nearly enough. He set down my suitcase and hugged me. Welcome home, Grandma. That first morning, I woke up in a bed softer than clouds, in a room larger than my entire old apartment. I made my way downstairs to find Alex in the kitchen, standing over the stove with a confused expression. Having trouble? I asked. I'm trying to make scrambled eggs, but they keep turning into… I laughed. Actually laughed for the first time, in longer than I could remember. Move over, sweetheart. Let me show you how it's done. As I taught my successful, brilliant grandson how to properly scramble eggs in his gourmet kitchen, I thought about Danny. He'd called Alex's phone dozens of times, but Alex never answered. He'd even shown up at my old apartment, but I was already gone. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a larger part understood that some betrayals are too deep to forgive. Danny had chosen his BMW over his mother's medication. He'd chosen comfort over my survival. Alex had chosen to give up his life in Dubai to make sure I never went without again. There, I said, as Alex took his first bite. There, honest-styled with Hender. I think you two would see. Alex had chosen to give up his life in Dubai. I said, Alex had chosen to give up his life in Dubai. How's that? Perfect, he said, smiling at me. Absolutely perfect. As I watched my grandson eat breakfast in our beautiful kitchen, I realized something profound. I was finally truly home. Not because of the marble floors, or chandelier, or garden outside, but because I was with someone who loved me enough to cross oceans to take care of me. At 68 years old, after 3 years of counting pills and choosing between food and medicine, I was finally living the life my grandson had dreamed of giving me. And Danny? Well, Danny was learning what it felt like to live without family to steal from. Some people might say that was cruel, but I called it justice. So that's my story. Was Alex too harsh in completely cutting off his father? Or do some betrayals deserve zero tolerance? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this story touched your heart, subscribe for more stories about resilience, justice, and the families we choose to build.